American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee presents
General Chairman of the United Jewish Appeal, part of my job is to tell you about the work you support in this country, in Palestine, and in Europe. Today, my topic is the JDC, the Joint Distribution Committee, which, with UJA funds, speeds aid to Europe's surviving Jews. So that you'll have an accurate report, I keep in touch constantly with late developments while I'm on tour. Only this morning, I put a call through to JDC Chairman Mr. Edward M.M. Warburg in New York City and asked him for the answers to important questions I've had asked of me. He said he'd call together some of the experts who keep me informed. Herbert H. Lehman, JDC Vice Chairman and former Director General of UNRWA. Harold F. Linder, also Vice Chairman of the JDC, and Moses A. Levitt, JDC Executive Vice Chairman.
Henry Morgenthau is speaking out of town tonight, and I promised to call him before this afternoon is over and give him the facts and figures that he needs. Now here's his first question. In view of recent international developments, how would you define the JDC job today?
I think our job's the same it's always been, to hold out a helping hand to our fellow Jews in need. But it's the kind of help and the amount of it which changes with events. Today, and for some time to come, our job's to put 1.5 million human beings back on their feet.
If I may be specific, that means 3 separate jobs for JDC. Relief, reconstruction, resettlement.
Now here's question 2. He says he's been asked this frequently. To what degree do governments and intergovernmental bodies meet the needs of Europe's Jews?
Unhappily, they meet only part of the problem. For example, the budget of the International Refugee Organization for work among displaced persons is actually less than we had in UNRWA, and that was never enough. The Joint Distribution Committee must make up IRO's inability to provide Jewish DPs the minimum they require in food, clothing, and service.
Well, that brings me to another note I've made. Oh, yes, here it is. We've done a lot through JDC since VE Day, but as of today, just how far have we come?
That question calls for a good-sized answer. VE Day found 1.5 million Jews left in continental Europe, the survivors of 6.5 million. The only ordered pattern left was death. And those with breath still in their bodies hovered on the brink and called for help. Under JDC's European director, Dr. Joseph J. Schwartz, trained workers answered that call, going forward to heal, to counsel and to save their fellow Jews. The JDC became a worldwide pipeline through which the Jews of the United States, South Africa, Canada, and other lands passed on their help. The trucks rolled in a huge offensive against hunger. That battle is not over, and the trucks are rolling still. In 3 years, the JDC has put 165 million pounds of supplies into Europe. Enough to put food on the plates of 750,000 people, from Brussels to Bucharest, every day of the week, 365 days a year. And if the question is how far we've come, I think the answer is, in spite of hunger, disease, disaster, Europe's Jews are still alive, because the JDC was there. What's more, they are a renewed people. The men who languished in the concentration camps now compete in sports. The children who hid in caves now run in the sun. Today, there's life, and there's also a smile and hope.
Now, what you want to add to that, you've been in Europe recently.
Yes. I think you have to go back a year or two. You have to see the rubble of the Warsaw Ghetto, fully to understand the nothingness of Jewish life when the war came to an end. Its devastation is a symbol of post-war insecurity for Europe's Jews. Insecurity which drives the homeless in search of a place where they belong. Yesterday, for 100,000, the flight was from Poland. More recently, for 40,000, the starting point was Romania. And tomorrow, no one knows. Hitler is dead, but his legacy lingers on. In the DP camps, uncertainty is at its peak. But elsewhere too, in Romania, in Hungary, a shattered Jewish life breeds insecurity. The JDC knew and knows that food is not enough to rebuild communal life. There must be schools and synagogues, hospitals and child care centers. In short, the basic institutions of any community. 85,000 youngsters, 10,000 in the camps, are getting their first schooling, thanks to JDC. Today, the JDC supports 280 medical institutions alone. Hospitals that equipped from sun lamps to stethoscopes. Dispensaries that treat 90,000 persons every month. And modern convalescent homes, like the Murano Sanatorium in Italy for TB sufferers. And finally, there are the children. 140,000 Jewish children. 1/4 of them are in 325 JDC-supported children's homes, where love and care are blotting out the years of loneliness and flight. I think that these beginnings of Jewish communal life give some indication of the progress that has been made.
Well, so much then for what's been done. I think it would be fair for Mr. Morgenthau to point out that the JDC has at least made a start towards the eventual solution of the problem.
Yes, but to give a rounded picture, he must also point out that the problems facing us today are huge.
Now, he's asked two questions which apply to that. It seems to me they go straight to the heart of the situation. Aside from keeping people alive, what are the principal problems facing JDC in the immediate future? And
I take it he means reconstruction and resettlement.
That's right, Governor. His question on resettlement is simply, what about Jews who want to leave the continent?
Well, I think the problems facing us today can be made clearer by Mr. Morgenthau if he would say that for the surviving Jews, there are three Europes. Western Europe, with 350,000 Jews, most of whom feel they can stay.
Perhaps because they've made real strides towards self-support.
Eastern Europe, where more than 800,000 Jews, the bulk of the survivors live, where there are many who would leave if they could.
And Mr. Morgenthau might add that since they can't, the problem is to speed their economic recovery.
And in the center, DP Europe, 250,000 Jews who must get out. For these Jews, there is no likelihood that they can really rebuild where they are. Palestine, of course, would offer them a chance and new hope. An obligation rests upon the conscience of nations to provide large-scale emigration opportunities to Palestine and to other lands as well. JDC stands ready as always to do its share for those permitted to leave, helping them go where they want to go. In 1947, thanks to JDC, 30,000 found new homes, nearly half in the hoped-for homeland. Our hope still is that at the year's end, the number aided to emigrate to all havens, including Palestine, will triple the 30,000 figure. Meanwhile, for those who stay in Europe because they must or want to, the problem is retraining and putting people back to useful work. A job is the key to self-sufficiency. The JDC knows this, and through a broad program of economic reconstruction, helps people to help themselves. Even displaced persons are producing needed goods while learning, working towards the future and blotting out the past. The future has arrived for some 100,000 Jews. Aided by loans, by tools, by JDC's sponsored work opportunities, they are self-supporting once again because we helped. In Poland, for example, 210 producers' cooperatives have helped thousands to leave the relief roads, a process we hope to speed in other parts of Eastern Europe. And all over the continent, thousands of young people are learning new skills in JDC's sponsored or training schools. On the land, meanwhile, in JDC-supported Hashara, agricultural training centers, eager young men and women are living the farmer's life to gain experience, which they hope one day to use in Palestine. JDC also supports maritime training centers, mainly in Italy, where groups of young survivors are learning the occupations of the sea. They fish with boats, which they build by hand, down to the nails. The JDC supplies the materials and instruction, and the young people bring vitality and hope. It is a kind of partnership, this reconstruction, to help people start their lives anew. This phase of JDC work must be continued and expanded if Jewish life as a whole is to flourish once again.
Well, thank you, Governor Lehman. Thank you all. I think that we've covered the ground adequately. That is, as far as facts and figures are concerned, in time for the meeting with Mr. Morgenthau. Now, unless any of you have anything else, I think we can adjourn.
I have only one suggestion. If you can, give Mr. Morgenthau the human side of these statistics, too.
Well, I certainly will try, because I'm sure that he feels, as we do, that facts and figures in themselves are cold indeed. I know that figures live for me only in terms of things I've seen, of incidents I remember. Here's an item. $10 million in 1947 for DP country's needs. For me, that means a sunny day in Munich. And Larry Adler playing for a happy group of kids. That's really what the figures mean. What we've been speaking of is people. People who can smile again because we have helped. Children growing without fear, going forward confidently towards tomorrow. That is the meaning of our help. Every pound of food and every bale of clothing carries a message that we believe in them, that we are at their side. And as they gather to mark the festivals and holy days of a living people, in France and Poland, in Cyprus and Germany, in every land in Europe, it is our help that lets them feel again that they belong, that they are not alone. We have helped bring them out of bondage. We have helped deliver them from death. We have promised them a future. Now we must help them still, so that the future can be theirs.
The story as it came to me no later than this afternoon. It is a story not yet ended, because the end is up to us. This year, to help Europe's Jews, JDC must get $98 million. The future can be theirs, but only if we help to make it theirs. I am anxious to add a friendly postscript to what I've just said for the Jews of Canada, South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, and other lands. Part of the money JDC needs must come from you. Help us through your local campaign.